Kent State will be the worst football team Tennessee will not only see this year, but really in the last couple of years. And what are some of the challenges that it presents for this team in a week like this? That, your mailbag questions, all that. It's your Tuesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. I am your host, Cain. So happy that you have elected to make us your first listen here this morning, your first watch here on YouTube, and you everydayers for coming back every single day. Your part of the show is coming up in segments 2 and 3. We'll answer your mailbag questions right after we get into a little bit of Kent State preview here in segment number 1. This episode is brought to you in part by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. So we got a lot to get into today, and I do want to start off before we dive into the stuff, the nitty-gritty of the show, that Nico Iamaleava was named the SEC Freshman of the Week. 16 to 23 passing, 211 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He rushed for a touchdown on a 31-yard scamper. Or what a scamper, it was a design quarterback run. He had 65 rushing yards on 8 carries. That is Nico Iamaleava's stat line against NC State. Not that he's undeserving whatsoever. I just think Nico is going to have many more games that have a better stat line than that, in my opinion. He was far from bad, like we talked about on yesterday's show, but I did think it was interesting. Nico got the nod over Florida freshman quarterback DJ Lagway or whatever. Obviously a really nice quarterback prospect the Gators signed. He's going to be a really good player, in my opinion. I know Florida played Stanford, and so the level of competition is different, so what Nico did was more impressive. Dude threw for nearly 500 yards. I'm surprised that not that Nico won it, but that the SEC didn't do co-freshman of the week, because the SEC loves giving out awards to multiple people. So I did want to bring that to the show. Nico Iamaleava, the second already in 2 weeks, SEC Freshman of the Week. And keep in mind, too, again, Nico is a redshirt freshman. Cooper Mays was named the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week, and Tennessee had 460 overall yards, no sacks, ran for 250 yards. Well-deserved for Cooper Mays. Now, the challenge is different this week. So you open up against UTC, that's an FCS opponent. Then you went and played NC State, which is a top 25 showdown, and Tennessee obviously handled business. We'll see what NC State turns into. I still think that it's a better team than what it's shown so far to begin this year. And we'll kind of have more on that in a moment later in the show. But we'll see what NC State turns out to be. But you kind of had a exciting first game. Then you had a big-time game in week 2. Now you're kind of coming back down to earth, and you're playing an inferior opponent before you get into the SEC gauntlet schedule. Tennessee is going to beat this team by 70. Okay? I said after the UTC game that everybody Tennessee plays will be better and more athletic. I think I spoke too soon on how bad Kent State is, and I'm never one to disrespect your opponent before you play him and all that, but I'm in the media, and I'm not in that locker room, so I can do whatever the heck I want to do, right? NC State is a really bad football team. FCS UTC, which is a top 10 team ranked in the FCS and was a playoff team a season ago, will be a better football team than what Kent State is on Saturday. Why is that? Well, let me show my work, okay? Kent State right now is 0-2 on the season, all right? Got blown out at Pittsburgh, 55-24, okay? It lost last week at home to FCS St. Francis, 23-17, okay? So far this season, you have Kent State that is actually averaging more points per game than it did a season ago. It's averaging 20 points per game, but on third downs, Kent State is 5 of 30 in 2 games on third downs, meaning Kent State has converted on 5 of 30 third down attempts. That is 16%. Man, they have not scored a rushing touchdown in 2 games to begin the season. All right, last year they were 1-11. They were 0-8 in Mid-Atlantic Conference or Mid-American Conference play. So 0-8 in conference, they were 1-11. Kent State has not beat an FBS team since 2022. 1-3 or 1-2 against FCS opponents. 1-1 against FCS opponents. 0-13 or whatever that math. I'm trying to do math on the fly. You know me and that. I'm not too smart. 0 and whatever against FBS opponents in the 2 years that Kenny Burns has been there. This is the second year, 1 year and 2 games that Kenny Burns has been there. If you guys follow the ESPN Football Power Index meter, and we talk about that sometimes here on the show, but always during football season and the offseason a little bit, but during the football season it changes week by week, and I find it really, really informative, and it's a nice tool that I like to use. We'll start with the good, right? I mean, Tennessee currently checking in at number 5 according to the Football Power Index. Number 5 according to the Football Power Index. Tennessee has a FBI rating of 21.8, which the FBI rating is measures the true strength on net point scale, which is the expected point margin versus average opponents on a neutral field. So if Tennessee's on a neutral field and Tennessee's playing an average opponent, Tennessee essentially should win by 3 touchdowns, is kind of what that rating means. Let's look at what Kent State is in that same metric, okay? Their FBI is at negative 24.3. Negative 24.3. So 3 touchdowns and a field goal is the expected point margin versus an average opponent on a neutral field. So Tennessee is almost at the same amount a total in the opposite direction on the plus side of things. And we're mathing and we're doing integers here. That's not really part of my programming on a normal basis, but it is here today, just to show you how bad Kent State is. Kent State checks in as the worst team in the country according to the Football Power Index. There are 134 football teams playing at the FBS level. Kent State ranks 134th, okay? Entered the season ranked 134th, and after 2 games, it remains ranked 134th in the nation. Its projected win-loss total is 1.6 wins, 10.4 losses. So if you played the averages there, you're looking at a 2-10 record is what Kent State is on pace for. A 0.4% chance to win 6 games. No chance to go to the playoffs, 0 chance to make the national championship game, 0% chance to win the national championship, 0% chance to win their conference, 0% chance to win out. I mean, there's literally no chance. I mean, the only chance they have, according to this metric here, is 0.4% chance to win 6 games, and obviously that's not very good. So this type of game creates some challenges, in my opinion, right? Talk about the culture and talk about the good vibes in the locker room. And sure, I think that the locker room culture and the leadership of this football team, and it's funny, every time Tennessee loses a game, there's questions about the locker room, there's questions about leadership. Watch, if Tennessee loses a game this year, there'll be tons of questions like, oh, where's the leadership? Locker room issues. I heard this. We don't know what the leadership and what the culture really looks like until you hit adversity. And so far, Tennessee's not hit adversity yet. I think Tennessee will be fine and will be able to navigate that adversity a little bit in games and in the locker room. But it creates a challenge this week, in my opinion, for the veterans on this team, the Keenan Peeleys, the Cooper Mays, the Amari Thomases, the Andre Turrentines, the Brew McCoys, to keep their guys motivated and ready to go and treat this game like it's a normal game. Sure, this is not a normal game. Tennessee should be able to beat this team by 70 with the backups, but you got to go in there with the right mindset. Got to go in there and attack the game the right way. I've gotten asked a lot of questions this week. I've gotten asked this question a lot of times this week. What do you need to see this Saturday that gives you more confidence for Tennessee versus Oklahoma? And my true, honest-to-God answer is Tennessee can show me nothing this Saturday against this opponent that will give me more confidence for the next week against Oklahoma, because this opponent is so bad. Now, Tennessee can do several things negatively that would give me some pause. It will give me more pause heading into the Oklahoma game. But Tennessee could go out here and win this game by 150 points, and that's not going to change my opinion on that matchup with Tennessee-Oklahoma. This team in Kent State is just that bad. And if there's any mamas and daddies of Kent State players, I mean no disrespect, and I know that's hard to believe, but I mean no disrespect. It just, here's my famous phrase, is what it is. This is a horrific football team. And so I think it also creates challenges for the coaching staff, right? How long do you play your starters? if anybody has an inkling of being hurt, and like later in the football season, nobody will ever be at 100%. You'll be dinked up, bruised, battered, all that type of stuff. But like take Cam Seldon, for instance. Josh Heupel said Monday that, Cam Seldon, Jacoby Thomas, Caleb Perry should be ready to roll for this week, okay? Because Jacoby Thomas got banged up a little bit in the game. Cam Seldon, Caleb Perry missed. Caleb Perry, to my understanding, was just sick. So, like, I'm sure he will play. But, like, if I'm Cam Seldon, if I'm a coaching staff, why on earth would I play Cam Seldon in this football game? Let Deshaun Bishop eat. Let Peyton Lewis eat. Let Khalifa Keith eat. Cam Seldon is a guy, and I'm so high on Deshaun Bishop right now, but Cam Seldon's a guy that I think is going to be a really good back and help you a lot this year. So, do you play Javonte Spraggins, who was limping around over there? Do you play Lance Hurd? Do you play Cooper Mays? Do you play John Campbell? Tennessee's offensive line were battered and bruised in that football game against NC State. The answer, if I was the coach, was sure, you play your starters a couple of series and everything. But I mean, if you're up 28-0 in the first quarter, or if you're up 40-0 in the second quarter, pull those guys. Get them out of here. And I do think that when you are out there with the starting offensive line, you'll still see, like you see already with Dane Davis at tackle, Jackson Lampley at guard, those guys rotate in there and give some guys some breathers. So I think that this week, though, Tennessee should win by a wide margin. And Tennessee's backup should dominate the second half. And Tennessee, in my opinion, should, take the over galore at 47.5 right now over at FanDuel. Tennessee will certainly beat this team by 50+ with its backups. I do think it creates some challenges from a coaching standpoint on kind of how long do I play this guy? How long do I do that? And from a leadership standpoint of like, hey, let's go out there and get through this game and let's go ball out and then let's get to Oklahoma. So I thought it was interesting. We'll go through a little bit of a deeper dive later in the week on the personnel for Kent State, but no rushing touchdowns. They're 16% on third down so far. They're averaging only 246 yards of total offense through two games. Ranked number 134th. That is dead last among FBS opponents, FBS football programs, according to ESPN's Power Football Index. This is a bad football team coming up, and Tennessee should have their way with them and then ultimately go on to Norman, Oklahoma, and that is when the season really gets going. This last weekend was a test, no doubt, was a very big test. Tennessee passed it with flying colors against NC State. Tennessee should win by 70 with the backups playing in this game against Kent State. Too harsh? I don't think so. It just, again, my famous phrase, is what it is. When we come back, we'll get into your mailbag questions, all that and more, as we roll on here on a Tuesday, Locked On Vols. I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on the brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love as much as I do. That is called Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game, the simulation, you get to step into the shoes of the head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers? From recruiting players, hiring coaching staff, overseeing training camps, and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? And here's what I really love about the game. You're responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy not only determines the success of your football season, but it's going to shape the future of your program. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free. Has no ads, 100% playable offline, and you can play on the go as you want to, when you want to. Put in the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store, and receive a free boost to your program. Take advantage of this deal. Get your team off on the right starts. Download the game at ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com. Put in that promo code LOCKEDONCFB and look it up in the game stores and Apple Store and Google Play. That is Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today with Ultimate College Football HC. All right, we got a lot of questions to get into here for your mailbag portion of the show, so let's dive down into it. David Johns wants to know, what if this is the floor for Nico? I have no problem thinking this could be his worst collegiate game of his career. And again, yeah, I think there's a lot of meat left on the bone for Nico in the offense. I mean, the offense had 460 yards of total offense, 250 rushing yards. Nico accounted for 3 total touchdowns. He was the SEC Freshman of the Week. He was not bad, but he did have 2 turnovers. What I like about Nico is his even keel, okay? He threw that interception. Okay, let's go back to work. He comes back, throws a dime to scroll right on the wheel route down there on the sideline. If this is Nico's worst game ever, which I'm sure he'll have a worst game at some point, but if this is Nico's worst game, yeah, this is called growing pains. sign me up, because goodness gracious, he is a really, really good football player. And with this defense playing the way it is, and with the ability of Nico, Tennessee should never be out of a football game. Marvelous Marvin Medley, with the success of lining up in 12 personnel, is it just me, or do you think there's a more than likely chance that we see Nico run the triple option in Norman? Triple option? No, in my opinion. Some option wrinkles, speed option wrinkles? Absolutely. Sure, there can be a triple option we see with the handoff. He can run, or he can throw out to the flat. The throwing out to the flat's kind of like the pitch. But with the 12 personnel, you can certainly run some speed option sets in there. But triple option, I don't think so. Let's go to Aiden. How much does this two interceptions impact Nico's Heisman race at the end of the year? With all due respect, it's week 2. They play 2 games. I think it's a little early to talk Heisman for anybody, much less Nico, who's kind of down the projected boards if you look over at FanDuel. But yeah, I mean, it would hurt it, right? I mean, he turned the football over twice. Yeah, I mean, it would hurt its chances as right now because he had a two turnover game. Now, if you continue to have, more than double the amount of touchdowns to turnovers, then you're going to be okay by year's end. But he did turn the football over twice, so I would have to say if it affects it at all, which I don't think it does because this is early in the season, I would say it probably hinders it a little bit. One, Stouffer's got a couple of questions here. Do you think the defense will now play us like NC State because of how they shut down the passes between the hashes? Do you think defense is on the schedule? Okay, we'll play NC State. We'll play like NC State did. No, I think more than anything, the lack of the middle of the field passing was because Tennessee was in 12 personnel, and you had a tight end and an H-back, then you had 2 wide receivers to one side. So there were a lot of routes that weren't going over the middle of the field, whereas you stretch it out and there's guys going shallow, there's guys going dig behind, deep posts, slants. It just was a different little wrinkle. So I don't think it was necessarily anything NC State did that kind of forfeited that at points and times in the game. I think it was what Tennessee did. So that's how I'd answer that one question. Will Matthews be the Hyatt type of a deep threat? Maybe down the line. I don't know. I'd like to see Mike Matthews play a ton this week. I think he'll play a ton this week, and this could be his breaking out game for sure because he's been a bit banged up and he hadn't played in a game yet. As far as Hyatt's deep threat, I don't think he's got the speed as Hyatt, but Hyatt has elite speed. Potentially, though, I think Mike Matthews is going to be a really, really good player. Who's the fastest receiver? Squirrel's fast. Brazel's fast. Probably, I would say Squirrel, but Brazel's right there as well. Could this defense be as good as 98? Man, again, week 2, and they had a really, really, really great game against NC State. But how good is NC State going to be down the line? And we talk about transfer portal and taking some time to gel together. Well, 2 weeks into the season, that offense does not look good. Like I thought it would, down the line, because I think they have some players. So I'm intrigued to see what it looks like. I'm not comparing any defense to Tennessee's 98 defense. Until at least if they keep up this pace, midway through the year. That defense was filled with legends, college football Hall of Famers, national champions. We'll see. Come back with that question if they keep it up midway through the year, and I'd love to have that conversation. Let's go here. Peyton says, is it just me, or is Dylan Sampson better than Jalen Wright? A little too close to, little too early to say that, right? Dylan Sampson has performed in every opportunity he's gotten, dating back to his freshman year outside of that LSU game when he missed a block in pass pro. I think he's a really, really good back, and I certainly think that he can have a better career than than Jalen Wright if he stays healthy, and depending on how this year goes. Jalen Wright was dynamic last year, and he had a really, really good offseason. You saw it in his junior year, and he was a 4th-round NFL draft pick. So, I think he can be. Right now, I'll say no, but I do think he can be. We'll get to a couple more questions here, and then we'll take a short breather. Tyler says, after the first pick, we didn't see anything over the middle again. Is that because of the 3-3-5 defense, or is it something we should be concerned about moving forward? Yeah, I kind of spoke on that a moment ago. I think it was more or less Tennessee's scheme and Tennessee's plan of attack for that game. Don't worry, the over the middle of the field passing is going to come back just like it was. It was really, really strong in week 1. Backwoods Tennessee says, has your record prediction changed any based on the Tennessee performances so far this year? I'd hate to see Tennessee on my schedule right now if I'm Oklahoma. Yeah, no kidding, man. If I'm Oklahoma, especially coming off the week that it had. I mean, college football's hard, right? Josh Heupel said it in his Monday press conference yesterday. It's why you celebrate. I mean, look at Notre Dame. Look at who it lost to. Look at LSU struggling to run the football against an inferior opponent. Look at Tennessee, Austin Peay last year. I mean, points is like you got to be ready to play, but also football is kind of hard. So Oklahoma, I think, is going to be better. I know I said that about NC State last week, but I do think that Oklahoma is going to be better. But yeah, man, they got some issues on the offensive line, offensively, running the football. I'd be scared if I was Oklahoma, at least right now. Record prediction changes? No, I had Tennessee at 10 wins for the season, and I'm not going to back off on that now. Hit me up before the Alabama game, and we'll see what my pick is, because I could easily pick Tennessee to win at home against Alabama for sure. I can't really pronounce the name of this next one, but our first test for our DBs were against NC State. How do you think we did? I think they did fine. I think Tennessee's defensive line made life absolutely hellacious for Grayson McCall. I do think that, and I think that he was getting the football out of his hands at times. I think that he also stopped looking at his number one receiver in KC Concepcion past the little bit of the first quarter, which I don't really understand much of that. I mean, Tennessee's defensive effort in the second half was just stupid. I'll end on this one in the stat here for this segment. Let's see here. Let me find the drive chart and show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Look, if you're watching on YouTube, look at this drive chart here in the second half. Just incredible. Okay, so this is NC State starting in the second half. Here we go. Fumble, turnover on downs, fumble, turnover on downs, punt, punt. That is in the second half. They ran 8, 9, 13, 16, 19 plays, okay? They accumulated. That washes 0, 8, 17, 27 yards. 19 plays, 27 yards in the second half. Whereas on the opening drive, which 12 plays is impressive, but 29 yards, 12 plays, 29 yards on the opening drive of the football game. Whereas they went 17 plays, 19 plays, 27 yards in the entire second half. Just wild times right now. Just wild. What was the question again? I think more or less it was what Tennessee was doing, and the DBs, DBs. Now I think they did fine. I think Jamal McCoy had a really good game. I thought Ricky Gibson didn't show up in a bad way. Will Brooks had the pick six. They missed some tackles. They weren't perfect. That Boo Carter I think played much better. There was that one trick play where they tried to scheme it up, and that was a pretty good scheme to get one-on-one coverage with Concepcion and a Tennessee defensive back, and Boo Carter made the tackle, but he allowed the reception. But I mean, overall, I think Tennessee's DBs did fine. Test number one, check. Let's check back when they go to Norman, Oklahoma. All right, we got plenty more questions to get into here on the mailbag edition of Locked On Vols, so stay tuned, and we'll answer them. 5-hour energy fixes tired fast. Whether you have had a long list of to do work for your work, or if you got DIY projects to tackle at home, take a 5-hour energy shot so you can check everything off your list. If you're like me, you always have a large list of projects for home and at work. When you get your supplies for the project, don't forget the most essential supply. That is a 5-hour energy shot. Listen, during football season is my busy season. Sundays and Mondays are my busiest days, and that's not even game day on Friday. I am constantly going on a little bit of sleep, watching the game tape, writing columns, doing podcasts, getting everything ready to go. I hit a wall sometimes. And what I do to push through that wall, not crash into it, push through that wall, is I take a 5-hour energy shot. Zero sugar, convenient portable sizing, perfect pick-me-up to getting stuff done. 5-hour energy website's got flavors galore like watermelon. My personal favorite is tropical burst, grape, berry, so much more. Plus, you can have your own 12-packs or 24-packs. They deliver right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, to get some 5-hour energy products today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. Offers valid through September the 30th. You cannot be used on other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders as well. Go to 5hourenergy.com today, put in my promo code LOCKEDONCFB for 20% off your order at 5hourenergy.com. Okay, we got a couple more questions to get into here on this Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols, so buckle up, and we'll go ahead and get into them. Let's go to Preston. Going into Norman in 2 weeks, how realistic is it that we get a similar result to the NC State game? Oklahoma is extremely inept on the offensive line. Quarterback play is inconsistent at best. Yeah, so far, I agree with you. They play Tulane this week, right? Tulane's not a pushover. What does Oklahoma look like against Tulane? How does that offensive line look like in that game? What does Jackson Arnold do in that game? Could it be similar in terms of result? I think it can be, and I've thought that way all offseason because I think Tennessee's defensive line is going to take over that game in the second half, just like it did against NC State, right? So, yeah, I do, but I do want to see how Oklahoma looks this weekend because I think, with a new quarterback and a lot of new pieces on the offensive line, just like NC State, it's going to take some time, but you only get 12 chances. Thornus 11. Do you think Dylan Sampson has a real chance at a single-season rushing TD record this year? 5 through 2 games is off to a hot start. Yeah, he's been really, really good to begin the year and scoring touchdowns, but also he had 34 yards in week 1. He had over 100 yards in week 2 against NC State. I mean, he's racking up the totals as well. So it's early, but yeah, he's got a shot for sure. He's absolutely killing it. Drew Bowe says, do you think we'll see more 2 tight end formations, or was this just a one-off thing? Curious because it seems so effective when our passing game is being taken away. Again, I don't think NC State did anything, with all due respect, to take away from Tennessee. Tennessee went in from play number 1 of this football game to attack that 3-3 stack with the 12 personnel. Tennessee was in 12 personnel 2 out of the first 3 plays of the football game, and up until the blowout ensued in the second half, Tennessee ran well over half of its offensive plays in 12 personnel. So, I mean, it was how they wanted to go about that football game was 12 personnel. And I think there's a question, and maybe I didn't write it down to get to, but somebody says, explain it to me like I'm 5. Personnel, 12, 13, 22. Personnel, the first number, so we're talking about 12 personnel. The number 1 and 12, 1 is running back, 2 is tight end. So Tennessee was in a lot of 12 personnel. Tennessee's home base, Tennessee's typical offense is 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end. If you get into some wild and wacky formations in the Big Ten or 90s SEC football, you could go 23 personnel or 13 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 1 running back, 3 tight ends, 2 running backs, 3 tight ends. You don't see that hardly at all anymore. But I do think this is something that Tennessee's wanted to do in years past to combat defensive looks. It didn't have the depth, okay? Now that Tennessee's got 3 tight ends and it's playing 3 tight ends, you have that depth to where you can go do that. Do I think this will be Tennessee's offense moving forward? No. I think Tennessee's an 11 personnel team. But to combat certain looks, or if you're being overwhelmed by a defensive rush, or if you're in the red zone down at the goal line, or if it's 3rd and short, or if it's 4th and short, big boy football, put 2 tight ends in there and go. Block it up and let's see what happens. Or if you're struggling to protect the passer, you can have at times an 8-man protection. You're only having 2 wide receivers running routes, but you can have an 8-man protection. You can have an 8-man protection before one of those tight ends slips out, just like Miles Kitzelman did the other day, Holton Stays did the other day. You can have a 7-man protection with one of those tight ends staying in. It's just another wrinkle to help you, and it's something else that the defenses have to prepare for. Thomas over Brooks, I didn't get the handle on this one. I do apologize. Essentially asking, has Jacoby Thomas shown enough to play over Will Brooks? I think they're both going to play. But right now, Will Brooks has done nothing so far to negate being the starting safety. But again, I think they are both going to play. Shooter McGavin says, do you think we should protect Sampson, Bruce, Squirrel, etc. this week? Yeah, essentially. Deshaun Bishop should cook in this game. Khalifa Keith, Peyton Lewis, William Satterwhite, Caleb Herring, all those guys. Yeah, your guys got to play and get a little bit of a rhythm, get hit a little bit, and go out there and do their thing. But if you have any type of injury at all, I wouldn't play. But also, I would not play the starters too long. That's kind of how I view it. Remember, Cedric Tillman got hurt in a game like this back in 2022, and he was essentially a non-factor the rest of the year. So football's a contact sport. Can't play scared. I recognize that. But this game means nothing because you're going to win by 70. Glock Vol says, what can we get out of Kent State game to make you feel even better about OU? Yeah, I answered that earlier. Nothing. Tennessee can do several things that would make me have pause, but with all due respect, given the opponent, nothing. Randy says, it seems to me in order to keep momentum and be full tilt for Oklahoma that James Pierce will need to play more than 10 snaps against Kent State. Does Heupel turn the horses loose this week and let them eat? Yeah, I think so. I mean, the defensive line, like those guys, James Pierce played 29 snaps against NC State, but all those guys play so much. Like Omar Norman Law played 14 snaps. Elijah Simmons played 13 snaps. They don't play an awful lot just because that rotation is huge. But as far as James Pierce, we'll see. He played 10 snaps against UTC. If he did that, it would kind of lead me to believe that he wouldn't play more than that against Kent State. But yeah, I think he's affecting the passer, and I think he's doing a good job. I thought that he was disruptive early on in the NC State game. The stats will come for a guy like him. He's just got to get home. Okay, JT, I just answered your question. Let's go to Matt. Any worry about Nico facing pressure at this point? It's the weakest part of his game. Room to grow. Yeah, I think there's room to grow. Any reason to worry about that right now? No, I don't. I thought Nico's best play of the football game the other day was the scramble drill where he threw a touchdown pass to Miles Kitzelman that got called back. If you go back and watch the replay, Dane Davis was not anywhere close to the line of scrimmage. But no, I mean, I think Nico, when he's facing pressure, making plays on the run, I think that's a strong suit of his game, in my opinion. Did you see enough in the secondary against NC State to be more confident with them moving forward towards OU? Yeah, I mean, so far I did. Had they still not been tested enough due to the positive defensive line play? Again, it's all into one. I think the defensive line had a big part in what happened in that football game, no doubt. I don't think they've been tested an awful lot, but from what they were, yeah, I think they're looking good. Two more. Let's go to Paulie here for the mailbag episode on Tuesday. The D-line has been elite through 2 games. It's about James Pierce being quiet through both games. Is this a result of offensive scheme, quick passing game? A little bit of both, and I just kind of talked about that. Yeah, I mean they're running away from him. They're doubling him. And also I thought that he was disruptive in the game the other day. He just wasn't getting home, and that's okay. I mean, that's part of playing defensive line. Last question will go to Cam. This is Tennessee's first time playing Kent State. Out of all the teams Tennessee has never played, which one do you want to happen the most? It's a good question, and honestly, I don't have a great answer for you because I can't tell you of all the teams in college football, the teams that Tennessee has not played. I can tell you some teams that I would love to see Tennessee playing, and maybe in the college football playoff, that's going to happen. Love to see Tennessee play Ohio State and Michigan. Not in the same season, okay? And Michigan's probably not making the college football playoff now, but my point is Notre Dame. I know Tennessee played them when I was young. Texas, Tennessee's about to play Texas. You know, they're in the same conference now. But Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, USC. I know Tennessee played USC when I was younger. Miami, 85. I get that. West Virginia. I know Tennessee played West. I just think West Virginia would be such a great addition to the SEC, in my opinion. That fan base is very SEC-like. But yeah, those are some of the teams that I would like to see Tennessee play at some point. Not all in the same year for sure. All right, that is going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. Check out Locked On SEC, Locked On College Football. Make that your second and your third listen and watch here on this morning. And we'll come back for a little Ward Wednesday tomorrow, and we'll also get into some of those stats that matter from Pro Football Focus as we continue to kind of tie a bow on Tennessee, NC State, and look ahead a little bit to Kent State and what we want to see from the Volunteers this weekend against an inferior opponent. Tell your friends about this show. Let's get it over 13,000 subscribers on YouTube. Download us and subscribe to us wherever you listen to your podcast. It's your number one spot for Tennessee Volunteers football talk during the season and year-round right here on Locked On Vols.